It's really about exploring the middle ground between total defocus, awareness being aware of awareness, no subject, no object, and attending to an object, all the way to attending to an object. And then the middle ground, we don't seem to talk much about. You often suggest that we can trace our way back to find the source of the attention. But in practical living, it seems that there's this middle ground where it's a semi-defocused state. Or, for example, in the exploration this morning, we could get firmly rooted in awareness and then do an exploration into senses and images and allow them to be the tapestry of awareness without identifying with the body-mind. We were still rooted in awareness as our being. And when we attend to an object, so the finite mind, it was something that came up yesterday. I think Teresa asked about stretching all the way. Is that the same thing as the finite mind? Sometimes we think of that as a negative state, but actually attending to the object in its details is a natural, and we don't just get mesmerized by the image of the object. We're actually bringing interest to it, which is what's causing us to attend to it. In fact, at work, we're mostly attending to objects and getting things done. I mean, practical things, or creative things. But nowhere in this is there a temptation to identify with the separate self. And yet, attending to objects often attempts us to stay at that level so that we go from object to object to object, and next thing we know, we're identified with the finite, with finite mind, and maybe are tempted to remain there. But it seems that what we talked about at lunch was like living a lifestyle where we could kind of keep ourselves in that middle, semi-defocused ground. And when we sit and listen to other people speak, I think we're much more semi-defocused. For me to ask this question, I have to tend to the object.
Yes, yes. The withdrawing of the attention from the object and the return of the attention to its source as pure awareness, being aware of being aware, it is not something we should, it is not the goal, it's not the ideal state to be spending one's life in. It is just, it's a necessary stage for us to establish the reality of what we are. The idea is not then to leave one's attention always merged in its source and never going out towards experience, activities, relationship. That would be life-denying. It would be only half the story. So we should just come back. We come back, first of all, we withdraw the attention from objects, bring the attention back to its source. First of all, to discover our true nature of ever-present, unlimited awareness. And subsequently, we bring the attention back again and again, just to rest the mind in its source, when it's not required for activities, relationships, celebratory purposes, practical purposes, whatever. But we should feel, having discovered the source of attention, the nature of ourselves, and having seen that whenever the attention goes out, in fact, it never leaves consciousness. The attention is always in the field of consciousness. So there's no question of, it's not really leaving, we don't really leave home anymore. We start working from home. We stay at home rather than going out to the office. And then when we realize that wherever attention wanders in the realm of experience, it actually never leaves its home of awareness. Then the attention is free. Why keep the attention at home as opposed to going abroad? Because we know that wherever the attention goes, it's swimming in its source. Then there's the freedom to let the mind go out for whatever purpose, for relationship, for activity, for work, for practical purposes. And it's no longer a problem. It's no longer either or. Should I give my attention to the object, or am I forgetting the source? It's there's no conflict between the two. Whether at one end of the extreme, attention is resting in its source. The other end of the extreme, as you say, it's focused very specifically on an object. But much of the time, it's somewhere in between, not specifically focused on an object. The attention is fairly broad, but nor is it resting completely in its source. But wherever it is in the spectrum of attention, it's always at home. Because when we know the object, when we give our attention to the object, all we know is the knowledge of the object. All consciousness knows is knowledge of the object. In fact, it's not knowledge of the object. All it knows is knowledge. What is knowledge? It is consciousness. Wherever it goes, it only knows itself. So, and as long as once we have this feeling understanding, then there is this relaxation from feeling that we should be doing this or that with the mind. We just let the mind, if the mind is required by the world or by circumstances, we just let the mind go there. If the mind is not required but by circumstances or the world, and no other creative or practical problem arises, then it's our pleasure just to let the mind sink back into its source. It's like, okay, I'm going to go and sit on my deck chair in the sun for half an hour, and then, okay, off I go again, out into activities, relationships, objects.
That's all good. So where's the left turn? I think, is it just a thought comes in and says, I did this? When in the process you just described, I mean...
The I did this thought is just an old habit, that there is a self, a separate self, somewhere in the system, orchestrating the whole show. It's just not there.
Yeah.
The show carries on. The discovery that self is not there. It doesn't bring an end to the show. It doesn't bring an end to relationships. It doesn't bring an end to enjoying life. It doesn't bring an end to creativity. It just brings an end to the apparent orchestrator. It doesn't actually bring an end to it. It was never there. We just acted as if it was there and as if we were that.
Right. But it's just a thought, and it's just thinking, and thinking, it's just knowledge of thinking, and it's just knowledge. So, I mean, even the thought, I did it, can be seen in the light of
yes,
just being aware.
That's true, as long as the thought, I did it, is just an old habit,
right,
as opposed to a thought in which we are really invested. If we really believe I did it, then there is some investigation to be done. It's not enough to say, oh, it's just the I did it thought appearing. We would be slipping towards Neo-Advaita then. So if it's for each of us to know, is the occasional appearance of the I did it thought just an old habit, in which case no problem, it just floats by. But if there is a real sense, I did that, then we should take note of that and pause. And it means that there's some more investigation to be done about what the I really is. And then we go back in that case, that is the time for pausing and allowing the attention to go back to its source, to find what is the I at the heart of experience.